So next up, they're talking a little bit about connected branding, connected packaging. So we wanted to try and get someone who can share a few examples of that. And so we are very pleased to have Jenny with us from Appetite Creative. Thank you very much, Jenny.
Thank you very much. And hopefully some slides. Lovely. Thank you. Well, it's really exciting to actually have been geared up for this with some introduction from Jose. He was talking a little bit about connected packaging. So that was really nice, because sometimes I have to come on and be like, let's switch to connected packaging. So what I want to do today is really talk to you about what is connected packaging, but why it's important now. You've probably heard about it before. You've probably been touched by it somehow. But I really want to tell you why it's something that's really interesting for your clients, the brands, and yourselves right now. So hopefully I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. Because as Jose said, packaging is much more than just something that protects the item. It's much more than something that just actually covers something and helps it to get from A to B. It's actually a media channel. And I think he said it's actually more impactful than social media. So that's pretty big. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, so if it's something actually which is our powerful digital gateway, what does that really mean? What I want to show you is how it really is this bilateral, two-way communication channel between the brand and the consumer. And if you want to learn more about it, today is a very exciting day for me, because the Connected Packaging book is now available in Espanol. And so I can give you a copy of that. So do come to me about that. So what we really talk about is connected packaging, and why is that important? And we do an annual survey. This is the 4th annual survey every year, looking at connected packaging. And we talk to brands mostly, and we ask them what they feel about connected packaging. And you can see some really nice stats here. 72.6% have already incorporated digital into their digital plan, connected packaging. So that's massive. 88.8% are actually feeling that this is something that is going to be increasingly important. And 75.5% plan to increase overall investment in digital marketing spend in 2025. So we know that it's moving, we know there's new technologies, we know there's lots of things that are happening, but why is this? We see this significant increase, which is obviously showing that there's a trust. So maybe there is something changing. What we can also see that is up from last year. Sorry, I just moved from there. It was up from 80% to 88%. So it's moving. It's going forward. We can see that 72.6% of companies are actually using it. And there's so many different ways it can be used, both in a B2B environment and a B2C. So sometimes looking at inventory tracking, sometimes looking at battery call, or consumer facing, where we might be looking at games or quizzes or research, or we might be looking at something around loyalty programs. And again, some really high numbers about the increase of intention. We also found from the survey, and you can download it later from the QR code, or now, whatever you feel, come speak to me. But one of the really interesting things I felt this year from the survey was actually the increase not only in QR codes, but actually the increase in NFC as well. Connected packaging can be from a QR code, it can be using near-field communication, NFC, or RFID. So any of those can be used singly or combined. And actually what we saw this year was an increase in the combination of those two. So that's a really interesting point to look at, which is, as we say here, it shows sophistication. It shows that we have some learning here. We also see some learning in serialized QR codes, so an increase there. So people are actually thinking about using serialized, and that means obviously unique or numbered serialized QR codes, versus actually what you would have as a general QR code as one size fits all, or an SKU level. Again, this is being able to create opportunities for digital printers. This is actually creating value, and this is actually helping us to understand that the market's changing. There is more understanding, and therefore the opportunity to be able to do different things is there. We can see again 66% of respondents showing that increase. That really shows that we're also looking at more things that the serialized QR code can deliver. And the serialized QR code is great because it allows you to do things such as tracking from time of packaging or fill to the amount of time it turns up in a consumer's hand. And that's a really interesting cycle to start to be aware of. It's also good for loyalty programs, or if you want to do something which is generating some sort of reward or deposit return. And of course, then we start to touch on sustainability. So actually, there's lots of different ways why this sophistication is actually really interesting as we go forward. But what are the key business drivers at the moment, according to brands? Well, you can see down here on the left-hand side all of the different drivers. One of the top one is actually that customer loyalty and promotions. And I think we see there's a big inflation. We're increasing prices. Consumers are less loyal. They look more for the offers. So loyalty programs are really top of mind for brands at the moment. Of course, sustainability, and we've heard some really fantastic presentations on sustainability, and Steve talked to us yesterday about communication and the importance of communication. And I think connected packaging really does allow the brand to be able to tell either the story behind that product, the story behind the materials, the story behind where each of those ingredients might have been sourced from. And that's really important. And also, it might just be talking about the materials themselves having changed. And again, that's another really important thing. If you have got a new packaging change in terms of materials, you need to explain to the consumers why. Otherwise, as you can see from the Henkel example, you actually end up in a loss of sales because human psychology naturally goes to, oh, they've changed this because it's cheaper, it's less quality, it's not the authentic product. So again, a really important way to think of your packaging as a communication channel for your sustainability initiatives. And you can see some of the other things there as well. The other thing we saw was reduced skepticism, which is great. A massive decrease there. There is some concern around consumer usage in that skeptics. That's one of the big reasons. And I think it's really important when we think about connected packaging. No, 100% of people do not scan. No, they don't. But 100% of people don't watch TV ads, and 100% of people don't click digital ads. In fact, if you look at a digital ad plan, if you see anything over a 1% click-through rate, the people there would be jumping for joy. And this does much better than that. So I think, again, that links back to what Jose was saying around that kind of traditional media doesn't work. So brands and marketing agencies are having to look for different ways, and connected packaging is one of those. And we can see there is a different change. And if you need more proof, then you can see some figures and facts here in terms of the size of the market. So there is some massive growth predicted. So if we can see that brands are increasingly more open to using, starting to investigate, and we know that the market's growing, I guess the question is, what else is happening? Well, consumer behavior is changing as well. And I think we know consumers as ourselves, we're all consumers as well. We want to understand a little bit more where the products come from. We want to understand a little bit more, is this in line with my values? And we also want to have more of an experience. And I think that was also one of the presentations yesterday that talked a little bit about personalization. In fact, 67% of consumers actively are looking for a QR code. So that's a massive change. Of course, COVID has helped to change that. We're now much more aware of what QR codes are, what it might give you. And so that's a big change. Digital interaction is becoming an expectation. So we're actually starting to expect to get that extra information. And I think one of those other reasons that's going to really push that growth that we saw in terms of figures and money is actually around legislation. And what you can see here is that we're actually standing at a digital crossroads at the moment. So there's some really interesting things there that you can see which are coming up and already starting. So ESPR, so we're talking about sustainability. Of course, you probably know a little bit about that. This is all around recyclable and the disposal end of life of packaging. So we need to tell consumers how to dispose of the packaging. And then 2026, the GS1 Sunrise project. So again, that's really coming up. ESPR being fully operational. And the 2030, the DPP implementation. So that's talking about the digital product passport as a standard. And if you haven't heard of that, this is a European initiative. This is something where it will be mandated that you must have on your packaging information about where the product was sourced from, responsible ways to dispose of it, and other things about the materials as well. You can see the core elements that are going to be required. This is going to be a compliance. And the only way you're going to be able to fit all of that information onto your packaging is through a QR code. So we're actually talking about something where brands are going to actively seek this as a solution. So if I'm going to have a digital product passport, and some of the first industries hit are detergents, batteries, liquids, if that's going to be something that I'm going to have on my packaging, well, you might as well also turn that into that opportunity to have that interaction with the consumer, to actually understand who your consumer is. As we know through FMCG, these products are sold through retailers, so they don't actually know who's buying their product. They might do a research study, and 6 months later, they might find out who's actually buying their product. But connected packaging would actually give you that information in real time. GS1 Sunrise, and this is an article from 2025, so this year, January, so I speak to a lot of people about it, and they say, oh, yeah, that's in the future, that's not going to happen. This is something, if you haven't heard of the GS1 Sunrise project, this is about the exchange of barcodes for QR codes. So when you're in the supermarket and you go to checkout, you won't be scanning a barcode, you'll be scanning a QR code. So again, this is where we're talking about the change, where this is going to be something which is going to happen for in this instance, the milk packaging. So here you can see, and GS1 chief executive talking about it very soon. We will say goodbye to the old-fashioned barcode, and every product will have one QR code that holds all the information you need. So this is changing the standard. So this is going to have all of the GTN information. This is going to have all the information about that product. But it is also an opportunity for the brand then to get information back to them, to create this two-way channel. So we don't just have to tell the consumer, we can also gather information for ourselves. Okay, so I wanted to show you a couple of different examples. And I think one of the things that's really interesting here is you can see that the average engagement time is 2 minutes. And if we go back to the presentation we just saw, the average engagement time on a mobile phone is 2 seconds. So actually what we're talking about here is when you engage somebody on packaging, you actually keep their attention. 2 minutes is huge. You wouldn't have a TV ad for 2 minutes. It would be, A, too expensive, and again, people wouldn't watch it. So I think that's a really important point. So this is all about Woodlands Dairy. And so Woodlands Dairy came to us, and unsurprisingly, they said there is an issue where dairy is not seen as the most sustainable industry at the moment, and we want to be seen as a brand which is caring about the planet. Okay, great. So to Steve's point, we must communicate to our customers what we're doing. And so what we did was we created something super simple, which was have one QR code across each SKU and deliver the opportunity for a consumer to enter a quiz to win a 500 shopping voucher every week for 12 weeks. We also had the opportunity to download a sustainability booklet, which, if I'm honest with you, I wasn't too sure many people were going to download from the mobile, but the brand was adamant that this PDF was amazing. I was actually surprised because 6,000 people actually downloaded that, which for me, I think is a massive win. But for me, of course, the biggest part is that bottom one, which is 30% increase in sales. So that's huge. So we're not just talking about, oh, this is a fun thing, or let's just do the new technology, oh, this is a fad. No, this is something that actually directly had an impact on sales. So it's great because we learnt the email addresses of these consumers. It's great because we knew who was male and female, and we also got their age. We also knew from which supermarket they had purchased from. So we have a nice set of data. They learnt about sustainability. There was a market research survey before and after, which actually saw that the consumer emotion towards the brand had gone up 2 points in terms of sustainability. Is this brand sustainability conscious? Yes, 2% more. So again, we'd also achieved what we wanted to, which was being able to change that perception of the brand as to being a brand which cared about the planet. Super simple. And I think that goes back to Roman's point at the very beginning. We don't have to be the most sophisticated to get started. We don't have to do serialized codes. We don't have to do the top end of personalization. Of course, all those things are available, and I'll be very happy to help you, to help your client to make that work. But sometimes it's just about starting and getting things involved. The next one I want to show you is Sunny Oil. So this is actually a cooking oil. It's the leading brand in the UAE. And I think there's a video which will play. So I'm just going to go to the slide of Sunny. Yeah, perfect. So what you saw there was this was a little bit different. This is our first campaign, which actually includes artificial intelligence. Yes, I'm going to talk about AI as well. But I think it's really, really interesting because what we wanted to do was something which was in line with the brand. The brand is all about efficiency in the kitchen. It's really around the lower boiling point, which means you can start cooking quicker. So this is really their kind of USP. So what we wanted to do was help people, particularly women, as we're talking about the Middle East, be more efficient in the kitchen. And so what we said was, okay, so when, if you're not a big cook, then maybe you're like me, if you go into the kitchen, you decide that you're going to cook a particular recipe, you look down the list of ingredients, and then you realize you're missing probably 50% of them, and then you can't cook anything. So I said, well, okay, well, how about we change that, and we use AI as our assistant, and what we say is what we have in our fridge, and then you can make me a recipe that I can actually create something. So this was the main aspect of this. So we're really kind of pulling people in to say, hey, we can help you to actually be more efficient in the kitchen because you can make great things out of the things that you already have. And guess what? You're going to cook it with sunny oil. So we used artificial intelligence to kind of bring that to life. Of course, there was some gamification in there as well, which is fun, and you can win some cooking utensils which help you in the kitchen. But the real point was to get people in and to start collecting data. This brand doesn't have any CRM whatsoever at all in any of their markets. And so already, this campaign is live. It only launched a couple of weeks ago. But already, we've given them thousands and thousands of data points about who their customers are. There's different flavors in each of the markets, in Jordan, in Oman, in Saudi, and Dubai, and they are already starting to identify different customer segments that they have in those different regions. Whereas before, they just went, okay, it's women, probably about 25 plus. Well, it's actually a lot more than that. And now they have the email addresses to be able to contact those people, to be able to offer them discounts, to be able to talk to them, to be able to do marketing. Because when you know who your customers are, you can market to them better. So that's Sunny. And then lastly, I wanted to talk to you about another really easy way to be able to get started. And what you can see here is our scan for Japan. So I've taken you all around the world. I think we started with the UK campaign, then we've gone to the Middle East, and now we're out in the Philippines. So we can help you globally. So basically, what we wanted to do was increase sales. That was the first and most important part. And so they offered a trip to Japan. They're from Japan as a company, so they wanted to highlight that, and they wanted to collect some data. That was the kind of their main thing, alongside, of course, the main objective always, which is increasing sales. So basically, very, very simply, you input a code, which is printed next to your QR code, so a serialized either QR code or code, depending on the size of the packet. And then you are very easily told whether you're an instant winner or not. Very, very simple. They actually increased their sales massively, not as much as 30%, but 22%, which for them is fantastic. This is their second year now running that campaign with us. Their entry goals achieved, obviously they got 218,000 data points. So again, they've started to build up that CRM system. They also found that there was a rescan rate of 6 per user. And normally, they saw that people actually would be creating these buying patterns on a much lesser. So we increased the sales and we increased the frequency in which people bought the product. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an idea of some of the ideas that you can actually do. This is about creating value. This is about being able to create value both for the customer, but also for the client. And this is about really being able to create an opportunity for that two-way connection, for the brand to be able to talk to the consumer and the consumer be able to impart information to the brand. We can see that there are lots of things that are changing, whether that be legislation, whether that be consumer behavior, whether that be around sustainability and the need to communicate, or whether that just be a simple, I want to increase sales and I recognize that packaging is that media channel in which I can do so. And there's so much happening. Of course, AI is interesting from the creative point of view. But if you think about all that masses of data that we're able to collect about the location of the consumer, the day, the time of day that consumer scans, and then we actually put AI over that, we can start to then come up with predictive modeling. We can then start to tell around different customer segments what they're going to do. And if you can predict who your consumer is and what they're going to do next, that's super interesting for the brands. So, of course, there's AI-powered personalization, recommendations, promotion, AI data, blockchain, augmented reality. There's so many interesting things out here. But I think the first starting point is really about being able to get that brand to connect with their consumer. So I'm hoping I've stirred up some sort of interest, some sort of reason as to why this is changing and how this might be important for you. The future definitely is digital. We know that. The future absolutely is around the digital and AI world. And here is how packaging is much more valuable. And I'm hoping that I've been able to stir up a little bit of inspiration there as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jenny. Again, are you here for coffee? So if anyone has any questions,
Absolutely.
About your recipes, I love your recipe.
No, not about cooking.
No, I love the recipe idea. That's a great idea. Thank you very much, Jenny.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.